Welcome back. This is part 3 of the introduction to Shroud of the Avatar, Forsaken Virtue, and we are still in Soulless Bridge outskirts where we left last time. I'd like to start out with recapping what we did initially in the first 2 videos. We created a new character called Ted Scott. We went ahead and started Ted Scott as a mage, which meant he started in the Blood River scene. We went through that whole scene and then proceeded on to the town of Erie, where we took one more step along the path of truth. Given that that path has not been fully finished yet, went ahead and went to the bank and dropped off a few things. We traded with another character to get a few other items, and we then proceeded across the perennial trail to Soulless Bridge and started the path of love. The path of love was the first one to be completed and is now supposedly complete all the way to the end, although they are still working on small parts of it. We then proceeded to Soulless Bridge outskirts, where we completed a few quests to build up our cash and our experience, and that's where we completed the last video. That's where we are now. One of the important things to be able to know is, how are you progressing? And the first way to do that is to hit the K key, or bring up your skills tree, and notice what your pooled experience in both crafting and adventuring is. We have 23,000 and 19,000 respectively. But that doesn't tell us completely what we've used. If we notice here on the magic tree, since we're a mage, we have 62 points, or 62 points allocated in fire, 34 in sun, only 3 in earth, 30 in life, 3 in water, none yet in moon, 31 in air, 28 in death. In addition, in tactics we have 13, in focus we have 16, we have 2 each in subterfuge and taming, which were where we started. On the combat side, we have 5 each in bludgeoned, ranged, light armor, and pole arms, which are where we started. Plus we have 29 in blade, which is what we're using right now to back up our magic. But that doesn't tell us really the whole story. One of the most important factors, which isn't shown anywhere on the user interface, is what is known as your adventuring level. There's also a producer level, which is important. The math used to decide how powerful you are depends very much on those factors. To see them, we type return and then /stats, S-T-A-T-S, and then hit return again. And in our chat log, we see that recording stats to the chat log file. Now, this is one place where what platform you're running Shroud of the Avatar matters. If we were running on a Linux box, we would have seen in the chat log the information we want. If we're running on Windows, we don't see it, and neither do we see it on OS X. On those 2 platforms, to see it, what we now do is type return /data folder and hit return again, and it pops up an operating system window that is the file explorer or whatever that goes to a location which contains a directory called chatlog. It also contains a current player data.xml, which we'll use indirectly here in just a moment. If we look in the chat log, we see that there is a entry for Ted Scott for today. If we open that up with some kind of text viewer and scroll to the bottom, I did it a few times to make sure everything was working, we see an entry that says Adventuring Level 10 and a whole bunch of other numbers. These are the numbers that do the math. This tells the system whether or not you can kill something and how easy it will be. This is not really an optimal way to do this. There are two alternates. One of them works only on Windows, which is a software package you can install called SOTA HUD. And the other one will work on all platforms that I wrote, and it's called SOTA Companion. And it actually works in your web browser. What it is a background Node.js process that reads those chat logs. And I've got it up here. And we see that at 9:10, our adventuring level was 10, our producer level was 10, focus and all the rest. These other information are really more useful for crafting and for knowing whether or not you can actually make something in-game. We started out, by the way, at adventuring level 1, so with just our 2 hours of work, we've gotten up to 10 on both of those. Now, if we go into crafting, or actually no, let's go back to adventuring and look at fire arrow, which we've gotten up to 22. Now, to get any of these up to, say, 50 or 60 would cost you, for each of them, somewhere in the neighborhood of 50,000 points. To get them to 100, the lowest is over 1,000,000 points. So this is not a linear progression. Every time you use fire arrow or ignite weapon, it looks and takes some amount of experience out of your pooled experience and then advances this little green bar. So if we go over to a practice dummy and target the practice dummy and then go ahead and execute one fire arrow, we were right on the cusp, and we now see that we are at level 23 of fire arrow. Now, so that's how you tell where you are in the game, how advanced you are in the game. Now, before we leave this zone, we're going to go ahead and run one more quest. But to do that, we need to, let me see where I am. I go down here and look to make sure I'm oriented where I think I am. Yes. I'm going to wander down this way and go across the bridge. And proceed onward here. Because Ted Scott is a mage and gatherer, we're going to go ahead and harvest this maple wood here, just because it's here. We've got a maple tree bark, which is used in dyes and a few other things, and maple wood, which is used for all the wooden sorts of things like bows and crossbows and handles and all sorts of things. Now before, we went more or less straight. We went to the east. But what we're going to do here is kill this, well, maybe kill this unless this other guy kills him first. Oh yes, we have a number of baddies here. And we'll get our target. Oh, for some reason we're not targeting them. Ah, there we go. Okay, we've got an archer, so we'll kill him. And he's our kill, so we'll take him. Ah, I guess he killed him at the same time, yes. All right, you can't loot someone else's kill unless they leave it for a while. Well, we've got another tree to cut down. You might have noticed there that my axe went on yes, we're going to kill a squirrel. And squirrels don't give squirrel meat. They give pecan nuts, which are used to make cooking oil. Here we go. Oh, he's after the other guy. Oh, I've got the wrong archer. There we go. Now we'll go kill this archer. We definitely killed him that time. And, oh, bloody. There we go. So let's go ahead and loot them. Looting always gives you at least a little gold. Where'd he go? There he is. All right, and we have that's a cotton bush, but it has no. It's already been harvested. There's our friend the archer. He's killed a couple of them. And looks like he's doing at least a partial loot on them. We could kill this stag and doe for venison, but we're not going to. They won't bother us if we don't bother them. Here to the southeast is the farm that we got the wolf quest from. And that's where we're going to exit. And let him take that small gray wolf, because we're going to go into this place here. Oh, no, we're going to kill... we have our first undead. This is a skeleton archer. And so we're going to... He's a little tougher. He has a whole 32. Oops, that won't do me any good. And one more. Oh, he's already dead. So we'll loot him. And we've got a shoddy short bow. And we also got some corpse wax. Corpse wax is a reagent. It's used to it's used for a number of... Yes, he's headed for the same place we are. Now, that doesn't look very healthy, and it's not. So we're not going to... we got a fresh zombie. So we're going to kill the fresh zombie. And since he's close, we can use close things. Okay, we've killed the fresh zombie. And we've got some rotting flesh. Okay. So, I didn't get quite what I expected. Oh, he's already got that, so maybe he's going to leave here shortly. I'm going to pop in here into this little house. It's got green door on it. First one I've seen, and we're going to interact with this merchant here. Now, this merchant is a alchemy merchant, so he sells reagents. And he also sells health potions. We don't need, and he sells worms for all whatever. We don't need any of these right now because none of our magic requires reagents. But we do want to talk with him. So we're going to go down to the chat box and we're going to click on the Hello tab. And then we're going to close this purchase area so we can talk with him more easily. He wants help. I knew this before. Okay, so we're not supposed to go into the spray. And we'll just say the graveyard to the south. And just to finish everything up, we'll get his name and say goodbye. Okay, so we need to kill a fresh zombie that has an olfactory gland. Okay, so let's get ready to kill a zombie. Hopefully our friend there left. And we'll stay away from... And there we go. We got a couple of them coming. So let's back off here just so the spray doesn't... Oh. Q. We'll down the... And we're actually going to fight two of them at once here. Okay, we've killed the other guy there, and hopefully this fresh zombie will have what we're looking for. Yes, we've got a fresh zombie olfactory gland, corpse wax. We get our first obsidian chip, which is also a reagent, but it is used in chaos magic. It's also used for certain potions, and it's used for making obsidian armor and some rotting flesh, which is used for a poison. And just to finish up, we'll go ahead and loot the archer. We'll head back here and turn in the quest. In order to talk to an NPC, we do need to sheathe our weapons. We need to use the Z key. Walk in, here's this little place. And once again, we'll talk to him. And zombie. Okay. And help. There we go. When we said help, it popped up. It said he's looking for a fresh zombie olfactory gland X1. So under F, we give him a fresh zombie olfactory gland X1. And we got 4,000 experience and 250 gold. And we'll say goodbye to him. And see that we're now up to 2,400 gold. That's a good thing. And we have, if we hit the K key, we now are at 22,000 points on adventuring, and crafting is up to 27. When you get points from a quest, the points, you get the points for both types of XP. So let's head back on out, and anything that we come to as we go along we'll kill and loot and gather. Oh, there we go. Oh, there we go. 3. And we get close. close to him. Oh, we killed him. And loot him. And drop our katana back. We have a doe, which we don't really care about right now. And what we're going to do is just, there's an exit from the zone. And we'll go ahead and work on the small dead wolf, small gray wolf, sorry. He's about to be a small dead wolf. And we'll field dress him. Picking up an animal hide in the interim. And might as well keep our weapon out. We clearly are going to be dealing with a few things here. Oh, he's leashed. Or at least he's headed that way. I don't know if he's leashed or not. Ah, we got a bear. Oh, we got 2 bears. Let's see if we can take 2 bears. Boost that a little bit. Now, we may not survive this. Let's back off a bit. Now, we're near death, so we're going to have to run around until, in fact, we come out of, there we go. And, we're dead. Okay. We've died for the first time. I was sort of planning that. So, if we look on our compass, we see that there is, at the southeastern exit to Novia, there's this little Ankh symbol. And that's where we want to head. And by the way, when you're dead, the other living things are these glowy balls of light. Now, yeah, here we go. Here is an Ankh. So if we get up close to the Ankh, we get resurrected. There are 3 ways to come back to life. One of them is one we just did, which was to go to the Ankh. The second is if you are in a party and someone else in the party has the ability, has the magical skill resurrect, they can target you and resurrect you. If that happens, as you'll notice, when we resurrected, we came back with our full, when we used the Ankh, we came back with our full capabilities. When you're resurrected, you come back, but you don't have all of it. You have to heal yourself and gain your focus back. Also note that there is an Ankh resurrection delay. If we were to die again, there would be a delay before the Ankh would resurrect us. The more you die, the more the delay. Now, there is also something that it doesn't affect us because we're such a low-level character, which is decay. And I'm not going to cover decay at the moment. By the time you get to that point, you will have heard of it plenty in-game. And on the forums and everywhere else. So now that we've completed a number of quests here, we're going to go ahead and exit back out to Novia, to the overworld map. And we're going to proceed to a town called Soul Town. Soul Town is a good location for our first sort of base of operations. We'll go back across Solus Bridge on the overworld. We don't need to enter the scene. And we'll head down. Now, before we do, I'm going to tuck into this Bastion Point, which is a player-owned town because it has something in it that I want to show you. It says, remember to carry food with you and eat something. If we had eaten our 2 types of food, we probably would have survived that bear attack. I didn't partially because I was only going to do a little bit of stuff here. And so let's talk to the town crier. Aha. Now this is very interesting. We've never been to Bastion Point. Ah, there we go. I received 100 gold. So perhaps it was in, if you remember from part 1, no, I'm sorry, part 2, we tucked into the town of Blackrock Cove. We talked to the town crier, but we didn't receive the gold. What may have happened is I didn't wait long enough. Anyway, so let's say goodbye to the town crier. By the way, town criers generally don't have names yet. And let's head on into this town. Oh, by the way, when you talk to the town crier, he will tell you what lots are available. To claim a lot, you need a deed, and we're not going to cover that in this video. Even though Ted Scott at one point had a deed, he's traded it off to Phil Scott so that he could be destroyed. Let's see, I remember it's, I believe it's over here. The layout of each of these towns is completely up to the owner of the town. So he can put things wherever he wants, and I probably am trapped. Yeah, good. Let's see. All right, these were the things that I was coming in here for. These 2 things are what are called devotionals. It'll increase the power of those who use it, but it also attracts the attention of the obsidian Kabbalists. This town owner has not marked put any indicator of what each of these does. This is the devotion of sacrifice. So if I go ahead and cut and bump my knees up against the devotion of sacrifice and bump my knees up against the devotion of honor, you do have to be a little careful not to get too close to these things if you don't want to use them. We now see up here that the blessing of honor has given us 1.5 combat focus per second and 5 agricultural proficiency, the first being useful, for 9 hours. And the blessing of sacrifice has given us 1.5 combat health per second. So when we're in combat now, rather than our health and focus going up very, very slowly, it will go up with a considerable speed. Now, there's one other thing I want to locate in this town. Let's see, I found it before. Unfortunately, the layout of every town is different. Remember I said the owner could set it up however they want. And somewhere in here, he has put an obsidian, or had put, he may have picked it up. The other thing is the owners can change the layout of the town anytime they want. Well, he may have picked it up for some reason. I don't see. I was looking for the Oracle's confirmatory, and I don't see it in town, so we'll deal with that later. So we've gotten our 100 gold from the town, and we have gotten our blessings, which will be very useful, and we'll probably pop back in here on a regular basis to pick the blessings back up as they wear off, since this is a nice handy town to where we're going to be working from. And Soul Town does not have any blessings because they don't want it to have any sieges. So it's a sort of a trade-off. There are towns with all 11 of the blessings. You can look on the website and get the what each of the blessings provide. Some town owners will set up a sign by the blessing to say this blessing gives you the level or whatever it is. So let's now move south again. And before we do, yes, let's go ahead and go into Soul Town now. Out that peninsula you see is a player-owned town, which is not really player-owned. It's owned by one of the developers called Hometown. And in there you will find an example of every house that you can get. And also, there are connected towns to that, which are every possible base layout or biome for the player-owned towns. And if you want to earn, in fact, I may not film it. If you want to pick up some money, what you do is go into Hometown and go to each of the town criers in each of the connected towns and get your 100 gold. Now, as I said, there are connected towns. If we were to go to, this is a hot air balloon, but if we hover over it, we see it says the Severed Isle. So if we activate that, we change scenes again. We're in Soul Town, and now we're going to what is known as a nested town, which is also a player-owned town. And we wind up on a dock. You'll notice each of the player-owned towns has a banker. This is governed by Poltergeist. And we got our 100. And we say goodbye. And tab. And return to Soul Town. The Mystic Starton dance is believed to have been introduced into Novia by chaos magicians seeking to confuse the unwary with its bizarre movements. Or, do not discount a lack of sobriety too quickly. And we're back in... I accidentally chose the exit to Novia, so we aren't in Soul Town. We'll have to enter it. An extra scene change. If I had gone to the other boat, it would have connected to Soul Town. I just wasn't paying attention. Not paying attention when changing towns is a minor inconvenience. Not paying attention when in combat can get you dead. All right, we're back in Soul Town. So, our first order of business is we're overloaded. We've got 93 pounds or whatever on board, and we can only carry 85, so we have to do something about that. Now you'll notice that we're moving pretty well, and we're not losing focus. If you get really overloaded, you're going to move really slowly. So there are basically 3 things we can do to lighten our load. The first thing we can do, and because I've got so many of these, I'm actually going to do it. Now, this is 0 pounds, so it's not going to do me any good, but we can destroy selected item. It says, do you want to do it? Yeah, I've got so many copies. It's silly. We're fine. So we could destroy we wouldn't want to destroy our crocodile skewers. see. We could destroy 3 of these shoddy short bows, and that would get us down to in scale. Or have I got anything else that's at all heavy? Now, the shoddy short bows are where it's at. The second thing we could do is we could sell the item. Now, the third thing we could do is we could find a crafting station of the right type. And we need 2, for the things that we have on board that need it, we need 2 crafting stations. Now, crafting stations come in 2 varieties. This is an expert crafting station. Let's go see who. If we go to the marker, which will either be a signpost or one of these stones, we activate it, we can see that this has a pavilion on it. It is set up as a guild chapter house for some guild, and it was claimed by Kerr. So we'll close. So whatever guild Kerr is in, and I think he's in the Phoenix Republic, I believe, although I don't know. Any of them can do some things, but he has allowed everybody in the world to use these. They don't wear out, so there's no big deal. So we're going to go ahead and activate the Founders Experts Blacksmith Station. Now we're going to salvage these things. So I'm going to take one of these rusty daggers and I'm going to drag it up here, and that lights up the salvage button, and I'm going to press it. And it turned into metal scrap. Now, metal scrap does actually have a weight. It's just really low. So I'm going to go ahead and drag all 4 of these daggers up here and salvage them. We can do it in session. You can salvage 15 things at a time. And notice that we now have 5 metal scrap. We're not very good at salvaging. Our blacksmithing skill has increased, but in fact, it was level 10. It's now increased to level 15. Notice that our smithing hammer is now 95, because I don't have one of those fancy smithing hammers, because I'm not going to do much crafting. I've reduced the metal scrap. Now, my weight is 88 out of 85. I'm still overloaded, but I'm close. So, let's now go to the... right next here. You can see that he's sort of set up for this. And we will pull the shoddy short bows all onto here and say salvage. And each time we salvage, we lose 1 unit, 1% of our carpentry hammer. And we upped our carpentry to 14. And we're no longer overloaded. So that's method 1. Now, the second method would be, rather than salvaging those things, we could have gone to a vendor and sold them. But vendors give different prices depending on who they are. So if we wanted to sell those daggers, we would be better to go to a blacksmith. Now here's another set of expert crafting tables. Again, this is, I don't believe this is actually this is a private residence. It's claimed by Onyx, who happens to be the founder of the EVL Guild. I happen to know that. It's an empty lot, which means it doesn't have a house on it. What it has is a whole bunch of decorations. But it also is available. The crafting stations there are available. You may not be able, if they're inside a house, you may not be able to enter it. So this is the town, and here is the town crier. And the rule is we always talk to the town crier, unless we know for sure we haven't, because it's worth 100 gold. And at the moment, 100 gold is worth a bunch. So we also don't care. We'll notice, by the way, that all the lots in Soul Town have been claimed. They were claimed very, very early in the land rush. And so in this inn is located the banker for this town. And he works just like the banker we saw in Aerie, although he happens to be an automaton. So the very same things, but the things that we left, the benefactor, the bone steel dagger that we actually left, the benefactor Vandul polearm, which by the way is a crossover thing with the Star Citizen game, and the bone steel dagger that we left in Aerie are grayed out. We can't get them. We could pick up any of the rewards, and it turns out we don't have any items that we've stowed here, which is not surprising since we haven't been here before. Except, of course, if I had stowed something before I destroyed the character, it would still be here. Our 2 rusted elven swords, which we couldn't trade, are in the bank over there. We got a whole bunch of other things. And as you'll note, the ones that were new are no longer highlighted as new. You only see those for 1 pass. All right, so the second thing you could do is sell it to a vendor. And in Soul Town, there are a few vendors. One of them is right. Here's a vendor, I believe. Yes, he's a vendor. So we could sell from inventory, but if we look at, for instance, the clay block we picked up would only get 1. Now I've already salvaged all of the items, but just to show you what it's like, because I don't need it, I'm going to go ahead and sell a map of Soul Town. Now this guy actually sells maps and tour guides, so that may be as good a price as you could get anywhere for it. I think it is actually. So we'll just pick up the 40 gold. Of course, that's another way to get rid of things you don't need. And of course, we've already seen a trade, so you could use that method. Or, if you actually just want to hold them and don't want to put them in your bank, and you have a lot where you have some kind of rights. So, the account that Ted Scott is on has co-owner access to this lot. It's one I claimed as Phil Scott. Since I was on very recently, it's good for a year. The age depends on how early in the game your account was first bought. And let me think, I believe. Yes, okay. One of the things we want to do is, since we're going to make Soul Town our sort of base of operations, what we want to be able to do is teleport back here anytime we want. Now, there are 2 ways to do that. We can bind to the lot if you have a lot that you have access to, and this will cause us to return here. Or, if you talk to a town crier in any town, you can bind to them. Now, as I said, there's another thing you can do. Okay, that's interesting. I should have permission. All right, well, I have permission in this one. So let us go ahead and I'll have to adjust the permissions on some things here. Let us go ahead and I'll have to do that as Phil Scott, I think. Although I'm co-owner, maybe I can do it here. Let's move into this dresser the things that we're not going to need. Now, if we try to move the bone steel dagger, we get a message down here that says, cannot be moved to a publicly accessible container. That's because somebody else can access it. Brown cap mushrooms, cinnamon bark. We want to keep, I'm going to pull the corpse wax over. We eventually are going to need, and also the tools we originally got, we can't trade away. But we can, we're going to keep the mandrake root because I believe that we will use, and I bet you this one won't trade. Oh yeah, it will. Map of Solus Bridge. Nope, that one's held. Metal scrap. Obsidian chip we don't need. The oyster meat. Now, if I pull a potato over, only one comes. And that's why I split this. The reason is potatoes can be decorations, and for some reason they do it that way. We have some potions. We're going to keep those. Remember, recall scrolls, things we want. Repair kit tailoring, I want to keep. Rotting flesh, smelling salts. Pull over the sulfurous ash. Leave a teleport. Do the same thing with the tomatoes and the trout. And fish are another thing that you need to split before you move off. A wolf head, which is used to make a wolf hat, and a few wood pulp, wood scrap. Wood scrap, by the way, is also used to make wood pulp. So we're down to 58 of 75. And we're going to do one more. We're going to try one more thing, see if it works, because I'm not sure if it will. I haven't tried it since many, many times ago. And one of the things you'll notice in Soul Town, and you probably will wind up in Soul Town fairly early on in your time in game, is there are a lot of crafting stations here. And we're looking for the carpentry station, if he has one. Oh, maybe he doesn't. Ha, he doesn't have a carpentry station in here. That's okay. We will go back to EVL, because I know they do. And let's see if we can salvage our tool. I'm not sure whether we can or not. Because if we can, then we can reduce the weight a little bit and get rid of it. If not, we'll just destroy it since it has absolutely no value for us. Dum-de-dum-dum-dum. I bet you we can't. I just realized I would have seen it. See if we can get rid of the torch. Ha! We can salvage the torch. Those were another thing we don't need since we have a light spell. Let's just check and see if it's maybe a different station. One point, I think it used to be made here. Nope. And there's realistically only one other possibility, and I'm almost sure it isn't. Nope. Okay, so just to get rid of the weight, it's not a lot, but it is some. We're going to destroy these old tools. Used to be you could trade these away, but no longer apparently. So we'll just get rid of them. We don't need them. All right. Oh. One last thing to do is we want to pick up agriculture, which is actually in the refining area, and put our Poe of Prosperity as the tool on there, which brought our regular hoe back, which we will now get rid of. Can't trade it. We could put it in the bank, but why? Can't do anything with it, so we're done there. So we now have one last thing to take care of in this video, which is we're going to go and where are we? We're going to go and take the next step on the path of love. Won't take any more there. We're going to do some more side quests, and we're also going to undo off camera that permission problem. The quest giver that we want, I believe, is this guy. Let's see if he'll give us the quest marker. Well, I guess not. So we're in Soul Town. Ask your name. So give him Edwin's notes. So he wants Edwin's notes on Soulless Bridge. So we'll pull that over. Give item. And we got 2,500 experience. And let's see. Oh, it told us how to do it. Continue. Thought we got some money, but maybe we did. So we got 2,500 anyway. So we have a camp across the way. So let's go ahead and head over there, and we'll finish up this video there. By the way, at one point from Soulless Bridge, you wound up at that boat right there. That was before the outskirts were created. So let's go up into the camp, see if anyone's awake. It doesn't. Well, here's somebody. See if they'll make a sign that they. No, I guess not. And we could, by the way, sleep in the bed, but we don't need to. I'm sure one of these guys has a quest for us, but we'll deal with that next time. So at this point, we're going to finish up this video. Thank you for watching part 3 of an introduction to Shroud of the Avatar.